Welcome to the Unwashed Asses, episode 115, recorded for Monday, June 3rd, 2019. As we sit on the hallowed eve of a new Destiny expansion, eager with anticipation of what goodies and delights the Emperor Callus is set to bring us tomorrow, we have to sit and reflect and think, what the hell happened to vampires? They disappeared. They've gone away. They have vanished from the popular culture machine that is entertainment. And as I say this, I realize there is literally a show on FX, set to wrap up its first season, which was based on a popular movie about vampires that came out a few years ago. Damn you, what we do in the shadows. Okay, vampires might not have gone anywhere, but they've definitely stepped back into the shadows. And it have, ceded the spotlight to other folks. It seems like in the 90s primarily, in early 2000s, we were just under an onslaught of vampire media. Things from, what was it? We had the Blade Trinity. We had the Bram Stoker Dracula with Keanu Reeves affecting a terrible British accent, and what the hell is his name? Commissioner Gordon. Gary Oldman. There we go. Gary Oldman, and just an overall delightful performance. Even if the movie is overly long, it's still a good watch. It's still a really good watch. TV shows, we had Buffy and Angel in full swing, and even if we weren't focused on vampires exclusively and things like was it Underworld? I think it was Underworld, the one with Kate Beckinsale, where she's got the fetish gear on and she's fighting the werewolves, and she ends up falling in love with a werewolf, and then they make a hybrid, and then the movies just get consistently worse and worse. And things like the Anne Rice novels with Brad Pitt just looking dreamy as ever in Interview with the Vampire, and then the god-awful follow-up with the late Ashanti, what was it, Queen of the Damned. It just seemed like we were getting hit over the head with vampire stuff nonstop until Twilight, I want to say, was the last big hurrah for vampires in mainstream media, and maybe it was them that finally killed it off. And as I say this, I stare at a DVD copy of Eclipse sitting on the desk next to me, and that's probably when vampires they're like, all right, we're done. We've had enough of this. Stephanie Meyer has definitely put the final nail in this coffin. Holy shit, I am on fire with the puns tonight. They seem to have crept away, and I guess what brought on this train of thought was Woody and I were talking about Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines. This was a game that came out in 2004, developed by Troika Studios and developed by Activision. Troika actually shut down shortly after release of this game. It was a buggy mess on release, but the story was fantastic. I ended up playing it in 2006 and gave him a copy of the game, and we both fell in love with it. It was just a masterful game in terms of storytelling and environment, and because it drew on the World of Darkness, which was already an established Dungeons and Dragons-esque game, it was very deeply rooted and had a lot of rich story and world to explore. So I had played it through and beaten it. He didn't beat it until actually yesterday, but he'd played it several times, and it was one of those things we had such strong nostalgia for it, and one of the channels I subscribed to on YouTube, Everness, I'm a gigantic fan of music and video games in general, but what he does is he will take zones from games like World of Warcraft and take the background music which normally plays in those zones, and then loop it and pair it up with ambient noises from that zone. So typically he'll do, like I said, World of Warcraft, so it'll be things like Elwyn Forest and Teldrassil and Ashenvale and like Gilneas and things like that. And I've used the loops in the past for things like Halloween parties, because he's done like the Overwatch Halloween event, and because they're looped for like an hour, they're just fantastic to play. But on top of that, like when I'm playing something, I like to just have that going in the background. So recently, while playing Dauntless, I've been really reminiscing hard about World of Warcraft, because like going through the forest zones and fighting the owlbears, which I mean, they're essentially just the boomkin form of druids, and wearing some of the armor that you do in that game, it's really reminiscent of like Teldrassil and the forest zones and night elves in general. And part of me is like, I really, really want to turn my character's skin purple and give her white hair, and like, yeah, then I'd be back in World of Warcraft, and then I'd be thinking, what if they just remade World of Warcraft with this combat style and these graphics? Oh, that'd be so good. So then I got the idea of, well, let's mute the natural music of the game, and let's throw on one of Everness's YouTube videos in the background. And when I had gone to his channel, I found that he had done a couple of videos for Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines, and I was like, holy shit, I've not thought about this game in years. And so, of course, I put it on, and it's like, the way he sets it up is the videos themselves, while they're playing the music, they're usually like panning shots of the environment itself. So for Bloodlines, what he does is similar thing. He's kind of going through the levels, not playing, but giving you that slow pan, and just the nostalgia is running through me, where I'm just sitting here listening to the music and watching, and then I link it in the Discord, and Woody and I get to talking about it, and the next thing I know, he sent me a copy of the game, because I had purchased it on a now defunct site years ago, like I said, about 2006, but never got it on like Steam, and I lost that initial download. So he was nice enough, he bought me a copy of it, and like, oh, it'd be so cool if we stream this together, like upload it to like YouTube, because that's the great thing about the game, is it presents you with choices, and there's different ways of doing the missions, and the game has like 4 endings, and so it'd be cool to compare and contrast, because we're different people, we go about things differently. So that was the plan, and he binged through it and beat it in 2 nights, like just pulling all-nighters, and that's amazing. I haven't started up yet because like I said, Troika Games had closed down shortly after the release of the game, and it was riddled with bugs on release. So it fell to like the fan community to literally patch the game and make it better, because I guess one of the good things is, while they never released the source engine for the game, it was actually built during the time when Half-Life 2 was coming out, so it used the source engine that Valve had used for games like Team Fortress, Counter-Strike, Half-Life, and Portal, and so it was easy enough to work with. And literally, there is a devoted community that has been patching and updating this game up until like, I think May 31st was the last patch that they had rolled out of this year. Like, they're still working on it, and so it was a hefty size patch, like more than I was expecting. It was like half a gig. I'm not saying it's big, but way more than I expected. So got that installed, and it adds in a lot of like cut content and characters, and some of it's like laughably bad, because they've added in little scenarios, and then they've done like their own voice acting. You can tell the mic quality is kind of garbage, and the acting isn't there. So it's funny to see that, but I'm curious now to go through like that old content and really delve into this game. I've just been trying to come up with like a good persona to play it to, because I want to, really entrench myself in this world, and then I want to make it, entertaining to watch on like YouTube. But that then got me to thinking, what the hell happened to vampires in media? And yeah, just kind of through that train of thought, I'm thinking Twilight killed it off, because shortly thereafter, vampires gave rise to zombies in terms of movies and TV shows, where we were just kind of hit over the head with zombie entertainment with, the 28 days later, 28 weeks later, Zombieland. We even have a new zombie movie coming out this summer with Bill Murray and Kylo Ren, which looks pretty damn hilarious. And then shows like The Walking Dead, which has just been going on for ages and ages and ages, and it's had its own spin-off, and then we have the comic. But zombies themselves are even fading away, and now we have like superheroes that have filled this role for like the past 10 years, where I guess that's the thing, like we're getting tired of monsters in movies where, yeah, they were super cool to go see in popular media, like, movies, but not so much anymore. I'm trying to think of recent examples where we've had one type of monster really dominate. And we've had offshoots and spin-offs, like we had the shitty Tom Cruise remake of The Mummy. We had the Wolfman remake years ago with Benicio del Toro, which, I mean, listeners of the show know Wolfman's my favorite Universal monster movie, and I think the remake with fucking Agent Smith and Frankie fucking Four Fingers was phenomenal. I loved it. But then we have movies like Daniel Radcliffe's Victor Frankenstein, which it was, all right, but nothing, they're not like establishing a genre of like just, again, weird offshoots. And maybe it's good because we need a lull in things like this before it allows us to kind of, take a breather and get refreshed and rejuvenated and let the content like this kind of come back and hit you full force. But I have to wonder, vampires have been popular for centuries. It didn't take Bram Stoker writing a book to make them popular. But, we had vampires, then we had zombies. I feel like werewolves could get their own, time in the spotlight. But right now, I think we have to get sick of superheroes first. And the way Marvel is just consistently cranking out quality, it might be hard. But then again, we had this big investment in their cinematic universe and the overall story, which kind of just did get concluded with Endgame. And the first movie that we have the first movie we have coming out afterwards is, Spider-Man, which just looks phenomenal. I'm not going to deny him, but maybe this is the point where people are like, okay, I'm all right to get off this train. I've made the journey and I'm not willing to go on the next leg of it. And this will free up studios to get on board with other projects. But the worry is always that they're just going to rehash the same shit over and over again and not take risks. That being said, we did have that shitty Dracula Untold movie. I don't know. Like, I want true creepy horror. And maybe, because isn't Guillermo del Toro working on The Shadow at Innsmouth, the Lovecraft story? Maybe that's it, because Lovecraft has always been, very popular in horror circles, but due to the nature of his work, it doesn't necessarily, I don't think it would translate to film well, because film at this current junction is very action focused, and there's very rarely, there's action in his stories, but, not the same type of action. Guns don't get pulled out, and usually the stories are retold as journal entries that are being read after the fact. And maybe it's going to take a visionary like Del Toro to bring that to the big screen, find a way to translate the medium, because everybody would love to see something like The Call of Cthulhu, which I think is a phenomenal short story. It is probably Lovecraft's best and would probably best translate to screen. But No, it was just funny to think because the Masquerade definitely embodies that late '90s, early 2000s, like goth punk vibe where everybody had red crushed velvet button down shirts and leather pants, and we danced real weird, and we listened to bands like Lacuna Coil, and everybody was super edgy, and the internet was just barely a thing at this point, and it was a different time, and Bloodlines kind of captures that perfectly in this little time capsule where you can go back and you're like, all right, I'm back home because I graduated in the early 2000s, so this is me getting back to that time, and it's such a fun game to play. So I'm eagerly awaiting my time to where I feel I can pull the character off and do them justice and play through this. So that's gonna wrap it up. We'll be back ideally Wednesday here with a new show, but in the interim, drop a line, shoot an email over to theunwashedasses@gmail.com. Again, theunwashedasses@gmail.com. Let me know what your thoughts are. I'll have a two-way conversation. And of course, check out the store. All these links will be in the show notes. I've got my TUA, the Unwashed Asses shirt coming in this week, so I'll post pictures of that. I'm super, super excited about that. But that's going to wrap it up. We will talk to you Wednesday. Blood for the Blood God.